Hey, it's Don, the Auction Professor. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, 1950s like sci-fi and science-related shows. There's a lot of collectibles. One of the key areas would be like Tom Corbett, Space Cadet items, things along that line. But again, they do show up quite often. There's a wide range of items from lunchboxes, comic books, figures, toy sets, play sets, Whitman books, all kinds of stuff show up for these areas. But we're going to talk about some exclusives here in just a second. We'll go over the screen and we'll go into some in-depth right now. Okay, so we're going to talk about not just Tom Corbett. For those of you who don't know who Tom Corbett is, we're just going to talk about vintage 50s, the start of the sci-fi movement, the start of the original sci-fi, like when Forbidden Planet or something came out. That would be like the high mark in my book, or Attack of the Flying Saucer Men or something. Now, we're going to center in a bunch here on Tom Corbett. Space Cadet, that's actually the name of a TV show as well as a radio show. Now, there's other names and toy lines that came out at the same time. Most of them are by Marx, but there's some Lido and some Rex brands. You'll see Captain Space, Planet Patrol, Space Ranger's another one, Rex Mars line's another one, Fireball XL5's another one. There's Star Station 7, Galaxy Command, and then Spaceman's another line. So these are all lines that show up. There's, 7, 8, 9, 10 different lines, but the majority of them tied to Tom Corbett. Tom Corbett made just tons of stuff. And I'm not going to show everything, because they've got, even microscopes for Tom Corbett's, his space investigation set. There's binoculars and walkie-talkies and all kinds of things, all from the 50s, some early 60s, but most everything came out like early 50, 52-ish in that range. But here's a ray gun by them. That's Tom Corbett on the handle on the bottom left. That is what you see pretty much on most of them. It's a different rendition. There were live actors that played them, so you can even find, 8x10 stills and things like that. Rock Hill was the production company. But this is $279. It's just a Marx ray gun. And some people think they don't show up or you're not going to find these. These do show up at auctions and things. So, and you can find them, even not in the greatest condition. Condition-wise, this one's not great. It's pretty decent though, but overall it's got some issues. So it probably was sold fairly cheap, I would guess, at an auction. That's probably where they got it, or an estate sale or something. But we're not going to spend a lot of time on this because it's just a centered-in market. This is something I always look for. Here's a flashlight that looks like a ray gun. Just unique stuff they made. This has the box, extra lenses, $225. Let's see here. This is just a box of cereal. Ralston was a name brand back then. It had like a decoder space coin inside. That's Tom Corbett again. And then they marketed that hat. You could even buy a uniform set even for the kids' Halloween costumes and things. Tom Corbett was extremely, extremely popular. Some of it just says Space Cadet, so it's like a mix mash of both, of Tom Corbett himself and then of other ones. And as I said, you can find these in different brands and different styles. Captain Space was also a Marx toy line. Planet Patrol was one. Space Ranger. Rex Mars is from another one. There's Lido, aliens, and things that actually mimicked off of Marx as well. Here's, again, Rock Hill Radio. That's the radio station that basically broadcast this originally. And as I said, it did go to TV. But there are lunchboxes. This is just the lunchbox. I've had all the lunchboxes. There's one I don't have in the pics or these images I'll show you. There's one with a rounded top. It looks more like the Space Academy dome. But anyway, I don't have a copy of that one. I didn't spend a ton of time hunting that one down. But there is one more, too. I'm going to show you a couple other ones, too. Bedspreads, sheets, curtains were made as well. This is a standard one. You will see this one. I've seen a couple of these in my day. It was well done. It's pretty interesting. Very popular. High 50s mod era. $100. And they run from like 75 to say 150 is what those go for. Here's one of the other lunchboxes. This one looks more like a TV. Now there's a blue one, a red one. I think there might even be a yellow one of this. And here's the thermos. $100 for the pair, but you can sometimes get $75 for either one. Sometimes you might get $100 for the thermos if the right person's online at the time and wants to finish his set. But there's 3 different versions of the thermos, and then obviously they can just swap out the cups. So sometimes you see red cups on the top of the thermos, blue, yellow, things like that. Now this one's horrible. It's hard to tell from this one, but there's a bunch of Decoder Rings they had too. Some of these are gumballs. Some of these came in cereal. They're not huge pricey. this has actually new, so it's hard to say if these are reproductions or not. But the new ones still sell. I buy all that stuff, all the little stuff. It doesn't matter. Let's see here, comic books too. Now this main one in the middle, let me see. This is the first issue. Now, if you're not familiar with comic books, Dell made a series called 4-Color, and it had thousands of topics. It had thousands of issues of comics in the series. And they covered all kinds of things. Bugs Bunny, Walt Disney, movies of the day, sci-fi of the day. Whatever happened, Dell 4-Color series put it out. It's probably one of the longest running comic book series other than a specific, like a superhero or something. Dell made, this is literally issue 378, which is actually also the first issue of Space Cadet. In the 4-Color series, they issued 3 comic books, and then after the 3rd comic book, they started a line of just Space Cadet Tom Corbett comics. So that was literally just Tom Corbett. Now, they did this with a lot of comics. You'll see like 3-4 issues of something on the Dell 4-Color series, and then from there they branched off into their own line. Disney has a ton of them on there. Any movie or anything that came out, if they made a comic book, it was usually Dell who had the license, and they issued comic books literally in the 4-Color series, as I said. So anyway, this is one that shows up. I've had all of the comic books. I believe there's a total of... I think 14 different Tom Corbett comic books. Now, there's other ones, Spacemen comics and all kinds of other ones. One of the other ones I see is like Fireball XL5 and things. Those are comic books, toys, whatever you can imagine. This lot actually sold. I would have sold them separately, honestly, and I've had them all. Like this cover here is used on comic or on coloring books and Whitman books as well, too, like teen reader style. But almost $70 on that one. Here's another line. Now, the 14 I was talking about were by Dell. This is another one. This is by the Prize Publishing Company. This is a little later on. This is like a rehash. I think 54 was the Dell ones, 52, 53, and 54. And this is after Dell dropped it because they weren't big sellers. I think this company came to pick it up. But there's 2 or 3, I think, on this line. And I've had them. I think the first issue of this goes for some good money, if I remember right. But $48 for that one. I look for most sci-fi in comics, but, Tom Corbett I have an affiliation for. I've got several of the comics on the wall, even in my office area, just because I love the sci-fi. We're actually working on a little animated thing right now with a 50s-inspired theme. So, anyway, it's going to be, hand-drawn images that I've actually well into right now. But anyway, this is a badge, and there's several badges as well. Some of these came in cereal and things along that line too. There's pin backs, anything that you could imagine. There's even boxes of crayons with Tom Corbett and things like that too. Now this is just a coloring book. This is actually in terrible condition if you look at the spine. It's hard to say why they don't have more photos. This could have been one of the ones that's lost, the back images. And this is even repaired and has coloring on 20 some odd pages, and it still went for $50 almost. So that gives you kind of an idea. Now here's another thermos, yellow lid. Now there's 2 kinds of lids. This one goes, I believe, this specific thermos goes to the one with the domed top. That one is a little different than the ones you see. It opens up like the old style lunchboxes where the top of the whole thing flips over as opposed to just a door opening on the side. So there's 2 different kinds. This is because of the borderline era that these came out in. I've had them all. This is fairly cheap for this one here, believe it or not. Usually I get a little more out of these, but anyway, it just depends on day of the week and things like that. Now here's another Space Ranger. Now you could become a Space Ranger for the cadets too. So this is another one of those premiums. This is iffy on when this was. Yeah, this is probably the same line. But again, it doesn't really matter. There's so many different lines of these toy lines. So anyway, another comic book just to show you. Now this is the Dell series itself. This is after they broke off from 4-Color and started their own series line. I love the sci-fi look of the 50s like this. It's nice. Most of the covers are painted covers too on the series itself. So anyway, I like the painted covers, truthfully. Now this one they could have probably held out for more. They only took 11 something. I would have put it up for a buy it now for like $18.50. Again, not super movers, but these are things I can pick up for $1 or so for a whole set of these. Usually pretty much any day I'm out. So you don't run across that one as much, but that's usually what I pay for them anyway. Tin Wind-Up by Marks, $3.70. Some of these are better than others. This one's in excellent primo condition. The tire's barely worn at all. Usually the tires are all beat up when I see these. But they do show up, so don't be discouraged by the price or what it is. Another oddball set. This is the Atomic Reactor Set. I believe they were same size as the figures that you would see. It might even have came with some figures. It looks like some are in the background there. It's hard to tell. They don't have it pictured that well for the figures wise, but I'm pretty sure that this came with figures. Either way, it's the same size as, the Line Mar, the same size as the regular Marx figures. But again, this is just all the same line, the same era, the same everything. It was all marketed the same way, even on the same sheets and the same catalogs. Now here's a bigger set of them. Let me go back this way just a second here. The box is key. It's always great to have the box. Isn't a super huge one. This is from Sears specifically. Sears made most of these sets, and it's probably one of the only places you could have got most of the sets complete. Now we find all these little pieces here separate sometimes. I'll find them in box lots. And unless you know what they're to, you'd be lost. But each one of these pieces you can sell for 15 or 20 bucks if you're lucky. We do it all the time. Even the car here. Now I'm going to show you this car here, how you could have sold these pieces separately. I never would have sold the whole set together. If you break this up, you would have probably got twice, maybe even more than that, selling it individually. I can promise you that. Even some, like this one includes a bunch of the figures, if I remember. Yeah, this one includes most of the figures, like the lady one down there. We're going to show you that one here in a minute, and some of the other ones in here. Now, it doesn't include the alien figures, but, this is a pretty good set. And just the helmets that went on these, I can get, say, 75 bucks for just these little helmets here on the right day of the week. So, anyway, we're going to look at it just a few more. Again, this is going to be a long video. There's not a lot to it. You just have to know what to look for. Here's another mix-match set. This one I think was a buy it now. It only went for like $250 if I remember right. So don't be discouraged by that. It didn't sell for quite that high. But as we get into here, now this is just the figures. But it has an alien in there, as you see that down there on the right. That is the key to this one here. It's sold for a little more. That alien alone can go for $150 or so sometimes. In fact, there's two aliens. There's a robot with the piping on his head too. That's why this one sold. But $260. So they spent an extra $100 on the loose other figures. Here's just the gate. This is just the gate, the front entrance, the tin section to this. This is all you are buying right here. $255, which is almost identical to the price that someone sold the entire lot for. So, and this is not the complete set. This is just the fencing around the rocket port itself. There's a couple different sets of these. So anyway, so I piece them all out. I always piece them out, every one of these sets. Now here's some Lido. The Lido aliens, you can really tell they're totally different than Marx in every way, shape, and form. And there's the Lido spacemen too right there. Ray gun and the whole works. The little spaceships on the top are very similar to some cheaper ones. They're like 5 and dime store stuff, that kind of thing. But these sell too. $217 for these. The aliens are the best ones. I would have pieced these out too and sold them in separate different lots, and you would have made more on it. I guarantee it. People just don't want to wait. They just want to blow it out. Now, this is many lines had this similar style. They just changed the name on it. So, this is another one of those Captain Space Solar Scout Atomic Ray Gun. Now, that's the name on this specific one, but they've just marketed the same toys, and they just rebranded the coloring, the paint scheme to fit anybody. This was after Space Cadet was off air, so this was basically, I believe the Space Cadet rifle looks almost identical to this. They probably just repainted it, which it was a big standard ploy. They already had all the molds and stuff, so why spend more money to make something when you can just change the looks, add a couple different colored pieces of plastic, and boom, you've got something new. But $250 for that one. Now, this is the same car out of the set I just showed you that went for $260 for the entire set. And this car is missing the dome and the person. This car on its own, no damage, missing the driver's dome. Yeah, it's also missing the driver. But this sold for $210. The set went for $260. So you break them apart, you're going to make more money on these. And I found every piece I'm showing you, every one of the things I'm showing you, I've had. Every single one of them. Now here's another example. This is with the driver and with the dome, and it only sold for $157. But still, it blows away selling it as a lot. I would have probably put this up as a buy it now for like $250 and just seen what happened, truthfully. I would have probably got $200. Now here's two other aliens. So these are just the aliens from the set. $177.
This is from the Space Patrol, Space Academy, Space Cadet. It's all so much intertwined. I don't know specifically which ones from which set, because some of these, they had sets, and then after the sets they also released, bagged hanger lots that you would have been hung up on a store on a peg wall or something, or ones you could have gotten at the counter for at a 5 and dime or something. But they're all made by the same people, so anyway, they're pretty good price there. Another car, again, they made 5 and dime cars that went with this, the same size, so you could use these on the play sets as well. $155 for this one little car. This is something that you might be able to get for $5 or $10 because someone's not going to know what it's from. Now here's that same lady I showed you before in that big lot. The one lot went for $160 and it had this lady and a couple aliens, but this lady is $150 almost on her own in the right color. So color-wise means something. Usually there was only specific colors for certain figures, but sometimes you can find them in many different colors. Just be careful of rehashes on these. They remade them. People will clean up the originals, make a mold, and then cast their own copies of them. I've never seen anybody get in trouble. I'm pretty sure all the patents and stuff on these have long since expired. So anyway, now this is the ejector seat dude. I don't know his technical name on some of these, but $137 for that one. And then another alien. Now this one's $128. This is a rather interesting one. But again, it's all from that same series line, that same set. It's all marks. It's all 45mm, all Space Alien, Space Cadet, the whole works. So anyway, and I've just got one more here. Again, this isn't a huge topic, but it's something I always look for. Now, I talk about just random paper items and stuff when I buy lots. Now, this is a perfect example. I've had the same bags from all kinds of these Marks ones. People don't think anything of it. There'll be an empty box. I'll even buy the empty cardboard boxes all these toys came in. These are the bags. Now, when you bought all these boxed sets, like the Space Cadet set with the cars I've just been showing you and the little alien figures, they came in bags like this. Now, if you look at the one there in the middle section on the bottom row, it says Space Figures. Each one of these would have been labeled. They're all labeled the same way. But these are the 7 bags that came with the Space Cadet. And just these empty bags went for $73.50. I mean, the last bag, I sold a couple individual bags for like $30 and $40 a piece out of these because people love, it's like the packaging that everything came in. And some of them are just plain, mind you, too. Nothing on them, and they could go to any set. There are some differences in some of them. This has striping down the bag, so this would be a little different than some of the sets. Some of the sets didn't have striping. But that's what I have for you today. Again, this is just a touch on this. There's tens of thousands of different types of collectibles from this line, from the 50s. Even back into the 40s, these sci-fi started to come into play. But once Forbidden Planet came out, it was all over. Everything was all over the place. EC Comics came out with Forbidden Worlds, and all the comics started flying out the door and selling like hotcakes. And that was the original movement of sci-fi, when like Space Cadet came on the radio in like 52 or so. I could be off on the year, but somewhere in that range. I know the characters very well because I always buy them when I see them. But again, that's what I have for you.
Well, there you go. Hopefully that gave you some ideas and some thoughts. It's a really neat, interesting category. I love the artwork. We collect some of it. I have some vintage Tom Corbett items up on our wall right now. So it's a real interesting category. Well, hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit the like button down below. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified when we post new content or go live. Subscribe and tell a friend.